Yo, what's up, everybody? We are back again with another episode. This is the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Logan Taylor, with my amazing co host, my brother, my partner in crime, Mr. Dontay Hampton. And listen, guys, we have a very special guest. This is an international version. You can now say that the Class in Session podcast is a international, worldwide podcast. Dante, come on and bring our special guest on.
All right. As Logan said, man, we have somebody all the way from across the country in Bottega, Colombia. That's where he's from. That's where he's currently teaching at. He was an elementary teacher at first. Now he's going into a more of a leadership role with the math and science. Felipe, can you just tell my audience and listeners a little bit more about yourself, how you got into education, and how that came about?
Absolutely. First of all, Logan and Dante, hello. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me. And as you said, we are making it international, right? So we are crossing boundaries, and I like the idea that we can share experience and compare experiences together. So thank you
Awesome.
for having me. Uh, okay, so basically, I've been in education for 11 years, and it's actually kind of a funny story because I wouldn't say I stumbled into education, but I did kind of took kind of a detour before I got into education. So I started as a business major, and it took me all but like one semester of college to realize that it wasn't my thing. But I kept insisting. I was a little bit stubborn back then, and I kept insisting. So I changed schools, thinking that I was going to maybe settle more into the major in another school, but you know uh, things happen, and in the school that I was going into for my second year of college, they told me that we want you as a student, but we don't have space in your major. So they say, why don't you choose another major and then later transfer? So I was conferring with my family, especially my sister, and she told me that, you know what, you don't you it's clear that you don't like what you are doing, so why don't you just start doing something that you like, right? So that way I signed up for my second year of college as a psychology major, and then I did the double major with education. um, but it wasn't until I did my first internship, which was like basically kind of like going on a blind date, because I signed up for a summer program actually, because the internship started in July. So I signed up for a summer program, having I know it had to do with kids and stuff, but I had no idea what it was. So it turned out to be like a little like an enrichment program for special education children. So I remember walking in the first day, and the person was going to be my boss asking me like, so how long have you been working in special ed? And I was like, wait, what? Like zero. Like if it was 8:10, I've been working by 10 minutes in special ed, right? So she's like, don't worry, you'll be fine, you'll like it. And she was right. I remember feeling like at the end of the first day, when the first day was over, like I had this feeling like, oh my God, like I felt like I've been doing this job my entire life. You know what I mean? Like it felt natural to me. So ever since that, I've been in education.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome. Gi- give us give us a little bit more information about just the education side over there in Colombia. How does that work? Or should I say, how are the teachers and administrators viewed over there in Colombia compared to the U.S., where it's they're undervalued and things of that nature?
Um, I think in that sense, unfortunately, it's very similar, right? Uh, in general, there is a lot of low pay. I do have to say that I am lucky enough to work in a place in where the teachers get paid a lot. They get paid almost the same as other professionals that usually rank higher. But again, it's not it's not the norm, right? Like the same as in the
Right.
state, you see teachers that need to have like two jobs in order to be able to make ends meet and all that stuff, and a lot of like top down regulations and things like that. We do have some like pretty strong unions in some cities, which is kind of like the same in the United States, that if you are lucky enough to be in a school district or in a city that has a pretty good union that can advocate for teachers' rights and needs, then you got it. But more often than not, especially the farther away you get from the big cities and you start moving into like rural communities, those are the irony is that those are the teachers that need the most support and the community that needs the most support of all, but usually the ones that get it the least.
Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting that you say that. So you said y'all have unions over there, correct? Based on the city and district.
Right, exactly. Usually the unions obviously work more for the public sector.
Right.
uh, Once you're in like the private sector, like me, you don't have they don't have unions or anything like that, which creates this whole set of other problems, right? Because one thing that they have in the public sector is that they have a little bit more of like job security,
Mm.
which in the private sector maybe we don't have. We are basically on a year by year contract, right?
Right.
So at the end of the year, you might be told not to come back or might not be. So there is no so much like security or protocols or stuff like that to to help to retain teachers or to give a fair process to some teachers.
Awesome. I love that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Lo. Get in here.
Let me ask you, Felipe, what is a common myth about your job, from when you first started, right, to where you are now? What is a common myth about your job that, like, when you first heard that, you were just like, yo, like, I cannot, I can't agree with that stigma, or I can't agree with what the perception is and things of that nature. What could you go into that?
Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking a lot, especially since the pandemic began and we hit COVID and virtual classes, and we had teachers kind of like doubling up their workload and stuff like that, or maybe not doubling it, but basically we teachers were doing the same that we do, working the same hours, doing the same effort, but this time around it was a little bit more visible, right? So it made like this myth of like the like the hero teacher or like the suffering teacher, stuff like that, which some people, and I think some people mean well when they said it, like, okay, this is the teacher that sacrifices all for their students, and it's all about the kids, and I do understand. Obviously, that's the main reason we are in education, is it's the kids, and we always put the kids at the center of the learning process. But I feel that that narrative at the same time has made it hard for us teachers as professionals to be considered as such. You know what I mean? And to be treated as such, because if we are working longer hours than we should be working, then it is because it's of the kids. If we are getting paid less, it's because it's for the kids. So I feel that that myth, even though it has some true on it, because we do work for the kids and we do stuff for the students, but at the same time I feel like, okay, we are also professionals that are learning, that have degrees, and that need to be treated as such. And I think sometimes that narrative shifts, like what they do with the narrative, they try to hide all the inequities and all the things that teachers should get but they don't get. They try to hide it under the it's for the kids. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand what you're saying. I get what you're saying. That makes sense. And so let me ask you this: with you being in education for 11 years now, correct?
Absolutely.
how have you been able to, and I'm not going to say avoid because that may not have been the case. However, how have you been able to balance, right? That work and life balance? Because, of course, we know that educator burnout is at an all-time high,
Mhm.
coming out of, the pandemic and COVID and things of that nature. How have you been able to balance that?
I mean, I think we can look at that on two levels, right? I think, and again, I think COVID really helped me personally to do this, and it was to like get better at organizing my time, and putting limits on my time. You know what I mean? Like being able to separate work time from personal time, and to understand that sometimes, um, the personal time, the family time should be the priority, right? And that was very hard at the beginning because the narrative, right? You should sacrifice everything for the students, and good teachers are the ones who are available after hours all the time. Especially, like for us, it happened that after the pandemic we started using like Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams, and all of this way of that students and families had an easier way to reach us, which had its advantages, right? Like being able to communicate more efficiently with families and students. It's definitely where we should be going towards, and it's gonna help everyone in the process. But at the same time, it became this thing where you were like on 24/7, right? So if you were not working, correcting or doing stuff, you were responding to messages, you were attending to parents and stuff like that. So like having to say like, okay, like after this time it needs to stop, and I'm not gonna take work home, and I'm not going to answer. So I had to like really define those limits for myself, and make them happen for myself. Okay, so like obviously I had to start small. So one thing that I did was like, okay, I don't care what happens if it's 10 o'clock. Like I'm dropping everything and I'm going to bed. And I don't care what's not unfinished. I don't care if the next day, the world might burn if I don't finish correcting, or it might not. But like I'm stopping it, right? And it started little by little. Started with like that one limit, and the thing, and that's something that we need to teach students too. That um, when you start being more assertive and put a positive limits for yourself, it just starts to like grow. So you start building one positive limit after one positive limit. So I also started deciding like, okay, I'm gonna stop taking work home in the afternoons. And of course, it's not a perfect science, because there is days, or there is periods, like especially we are coming close to like closing a period, right? So like of course you have a lot of things to grade and exams and stuff like that, or a report to prepare. So of course during those times there is going to be inevitably work home, right? I have a boss that say that, inevitably in this job, in this career that we chose, we are going to have to take work home, right? Like more than maybe some other professions. And that's true, but it's also true that you can make your own limits, right? So I'm starting to like try not to take home or work home in the afternoons, right? And just arriving and doing something for myself, going back into the gym. I do martial arts, so that's something that I had stopped doing uh, for the last few years because of time and stuff like that. So I was like, no, you know what I mean? Like Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm gonna go in the evenings to my class, and that's sacred time. So finding those spaces for you to be somebody outside of your work. To be somebody with yourself, to be somebody with your family. I think that's one of the ways that I personally try to balance it. Uh, on a more general level, uh, I've gotten really good, or I don't know if really good. I think that's stretching it too much, but I gotten better at advocating for myself and advocating for what teachers need, right? So like, um, I became that guy at work who, who will go to the leadership, who will go to the principals and coordinators and be like, okay, so it's come to the point that it's too much. We have to balance, we have to change, or maybe this policy came down from above, and it's not what's best for students, or maybe it's not the best way to implement, or it's not the right time to implement it. And I do acknowledge that I'm in like a position that I've been able to be heard, and I do appreciate that. And I also recognize that I've been able to use my voice, maybe because I have a little bit less to lose when using my voice than other teachers, right? Like, I'm a single guy. I really don't have that many responsibilities at the moment. Like, I don't have kids to feed, mouths to feed, rents to pay, or stuff like that. Or if I have things to pay, like at the end of the day, if I don't do it, it only affects me. So I understand other teachers having trouble with that, because it's their job, not only their job on the line, but it's their family's livelihood. It's basically the paycheck that pays for the rent and the school clothes and the school materials and everything that their kids need. Uh, so I've been able to use that position, like a little bit of that extra freedom that I have to do just that, to advocate for other teachers. And that's actually why I, during the pandemic and this whole COVID situation, where we were all like locked down in our houses, and teachers felt more isolated than before. I was able to start a podcast with that same thing, with that purpose in mind, to advocate a little bit for teachers and to give teachers a voice. I think that something that we need is to give teachers a voice. And it's like, like spaces like this one, like podcasts like these ones, that allowed for that to happen, right? To allow for, not only for teachers to maybe say what they need to say and have other people hear them, but for other teachings like this one, like around the world. We are a whole continent away, but but we are having this conversation, and it's these conversations that, like, little by little starts to change to change things, right? Like, I read this quote the other day that says, like, revolutions don't wait for policy change, right? They start like person by person, voice by voice, and it's like these spaces that allow it. So like trying to create those spaces either in my own school or in the wider community, where teachers' voices can be heard, and ideas can start to flow, to move from one mind to another one. I think that's one of the ways that we need to start, so we can start like balancing this issue of treating us like the saviors and the most important ones, but at the same time not treating us like professionals, and don't showing us like the same respect that people talked about teachers. They need to also show it in wages and workplace conditions and all that stuff that we already know that we need.
I love it. That's good. That's good. So just being intentional and setting those boundaries, and advocating for teachers, giving them the opportunity to use their voice, like you said, with platforms like this. You created a podcast, and things of that nature. I think that that's amazing. And then showing teachers that you care, right? By the wages, and allowing them to use their voice and respecting what their opinion is, or their point of view or perspective on things. I think that that's big. So that's amazing. And it's funny that you talk about you talked about wages, which is going to take me into which is going to take me and Dante into our next segment. I'm gonna let Dante ask you our hot seat question, and we can go right into that.
Yeah, but before I ask you that, I just want to point out I love the balance you said about not taking your work home. So for our teachers and educators out there, I think that was some big that people might have missed is not taking your work home, and then you said martial of a hobby. We had someone, well, our very first guest, who actually gave us our first opportunity, Mr. Thurkill. He's big on theater. He was a music teacher first, and then he was a principal. And like he does all these theater shows. He's an actor, plays music, but he has a ton of hobbies that balance out everything he does. So I just wanted to point that out. That was a very, 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 very big deal. So for our first year educators, if you think it's getting overwhelming, please make sure you have a hobby or something that you can do to balance out with you.
You
Just
know,
for y'all out there.
I was
What'd you
gonna
say?
say at the end of the day, I was gonna say at the end of the day that only that not only benefits you as the teacher, but it also benefits your students, right? Because obviously, the more relaxed, the more happy you get into the classroom, the better the outcome. But as a teacher, the more experiences you have outside, right? Uh, be it theater, sports, gym, I don't know, movies, like whatever is it that like inspires you is gonna help you. Is gonna bring you back into. You're gonna bring that back into the classroom, and you're gonna be able to share an authentic experience with students, right? So if you only go from home to work, from home to work, and you don't have that space to be a person, a human, and get yourself with different interests and stuff like that, then it's not gonna feel authentic for you, and it's not gonna feel authentic for your students. So at the end of the day, that benefits all of us. So like yeah, I definitely like echo what you were saying to, especially to new teachers, to to do your best in the profession, but don't forget you. Don't forget who you are as a person and all your interests and all the things that make you you outside of your role in the classroom.
Absolutely, I love that. I love that. So going into our hot seat question. So, is there a number, Felipe? And when I say a number, just it can be whatever you think. This is just getting your point of view and feedback on this. Is there a number that educators should be paid, or is there a value that you think or believe that educators should be paid? Because of course we know, like you said, not even just in Colombia, but even here in the United States, right? Like our teachers are not being there, and when it comes to wages, they're not being valued properly, right? Like they are some of the most important people in our community. They're the reason why we have lawyers, doctors, and and things of that nature, and they play a major part. So, do you think that there's a value or a number? What do you think educators should be paid?
I mean, I think let's we will have to look at what other professionals are with the same qualifications and the same experience that we as teachers have. What are they earning, right? Because now in most parts of the world, basically, I know this is true in Colombia and it's true in the United States, that they require, you need to have a master's degree or plus however many years of experience to get this job, right? And again, that takes a lot of time out of your life and a lot of money out of, like, that you invested into basically being able to even qualify for that position. And I think, like, if we compare what a teacher makes and maybe another profession, I don't know, say like a computer programmer with same amount of experience and same degrees, right? All with, let's say, 5+ years of experience plus a master's degree, right? So basically, we have the same amount of experience and the same amount of education, right? Like in most schools, the the price for you to get your master's in net, it's basically the same price for you to get a master's in computer science, right? But if you go out, the 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 benefit that you receive from having those two degrees is very different, right? So the starting salary for somebody in computer science, it's way much higher than the starting salary from somebody in education, right? For a teacher. So I think we need to start looking at what other professionals are earning, right? Like what you said, like the contribution that a teacher makes, it's a little bit harder to maybe quantify, right? So yeah, like you said, like we make all the other professions, you know, we create the doctors, we create the scientists, the lawyers, we create those professions, but it's harder to put a number or like an income or something like that on, or like a net income on the education of a child, right? Which is not as hard in many other mm, professions, right? So if
Correct.
I'm a lawyer and I work with a company, even if it's my first year, if I win the case, okay, I just uh, I just made my company earn so much money, or I maybe I avoid losing them. I don't know, X amount of money, millions. So it's easier to quantify in other professions. But if I'm a designer, so I design something and I create this campaign and I earn the company X amount of. So that's how they calculate. But I think it's harder to do with teachers. You know what I mean? Like, what's the amount of money that I'm adding to the economy or to the system when I educate a child correctly, right? Not only in math and language and science and writing and reading, but also in all the extra things that we do on a day to day, like values and self esteem and life skills and cooperation. So I think it's m- more difficult to quantify, which is one of the reasons why sometimes we don't get compensated in the same way. So since it's so complex to quantify the real amount of a teacher, I say the easiest way is to just let's compare it. I assume that if we had the formula, and I don't know, that formula probably exists somewhere, uh, of how much a good teacher produces to the economy, apports to a country, to a community with their job. I think we will probably be earning way much more than most doctors and most lawyers and most that stuff, right? But until that formula exists and like the perfect conditions arrive so teachers can earn what they deserve, I think at least we need to keep it balanced with other professionals. So what are other professionals that have, again, the same amount of experience and the same level of education earning, and what can we do to make sure that teachers at least get to that level?
Okay. All right. So we on the same page then, Felipe. I love this. All right. Good deal. So what I believe and what I think, Dante talks about this. He'd be like, yo, Logan wants to back up the money truck and pay teachers, this number. What I believe is that the bottom base for educators should be 80,000. I think you should pay. I think that should be the bottom base coming right out. Like one, I believe if you start at that, now you get a great number of educators wanting to be in the education field, right?
Mm-hmm.
This will also help them. Um, it'll also help them with having a livable wage. And then I think you can get a better pool of educators, right? So now like I said a second ago, you get more people that will want to be in the education space, because you got people that are in the education space. They've been teaching for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, and they like, hey, I don't want to do this no more.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think, like, if we could have some type of system in place or some type of incentives with, like, helping with your housing or helping the teachers get a vehicle and things of that nature, like, I think now we can start. I think that will show teachers, like, yo, okay, we respect you all and we value you all, and this is how we can help you all. Dante, what you got, man?
I'm just I like what Felipe said as far as perspective. With compared to other professionals. As I said countless times on our podcast, I'm just big on the essentials. So whether you're setting up a housing plan or automobile plan, some kind of transportation plan for teachers, I think once you get that in order, I think everything can trickle on down from there on my end. I think that's the two biggest things, especially with COVID and with interest rates and things going skyrocketing and the way the economy is trying to rebuild with everything. I think you just at this point everybody needs security. I know
I think
everybody's big on the entrepreneurship role and having your own business. I think the way the world is going, when people talk about passive income, I think right now you just need security and having the necessary skills to something to fall back on. If you have a house, if something happened, economy crash, you get fired as a teacher or whatever, guess what? You can sell that house. If you have a car, you have transportation. There's a lot of things you can do outside of that. So I'm just big on that. Those two pieces for me.
absolutely. I think like if you again comparing how other professionals are treated, sometimes if you hire a manager or a CEO of a company, you hook them up with all of that stuff, right? Like it's part of the deal to attract somebody. Like, okay, we're gonna give you the car, we're gonna give you the housing, we're gonna help you with this, we're gonna help you with that, and actually something that happens in in countries here like in Colombia, when they're trying to attract, especially when they're trying to attract teachers from other parts of the world, right? Maybe they want to diversify it or something. Uh, they do that. They'll say like, okay, we're not only gonna pay you this, which is maybe probably not the greatest salary or the best that you could be making, but we're gonna hook you up with the housing. We're gonna guarantee you the transportation or the food, or we're gonna give you these benefits in terms
Absolutely.
of shopping and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's definitely something that like school systems should start to do. Especially right now when I see the younger generation of teachers, like you were saying, like they or we, I still include myself in the younger generation of teachers, but like we come with a different chip in mind, right? So yes, we're looking for the job and the job stability, but we're also looking for all other those like not so like beyond the paycheck, right? So am I getting guarantee all this other time, or do I have flexible timing, right? Like as you were saying, like a lot of the young generation, they want to be teachers, but they also have other interests, right? So I want to teach, but I also want to be a consultant, or I also want to do, I don't know, my bakery business. So how are we helping teachers to deal with their workload, to deal with their time? How are we in as a profession flexibilizing the, I don't know if that's even, I think I just made that word up, but how are we making the our profession more flexible and our time more flexible to in order to have that new generation of teachers pursue the all the interest that they have, and that it's something that is ingrained with their culture. You know what I mean? They just come with that chip. So other professionals or professions are doing it. They they are working online for some part of the day, or like distance working and stuff like that. Obviously, I think it's harder to do in this profession, because basically, like the best, and I think that the COVID era taught us this lesson very well. Nothing replaces the face-to-face interaction of a teacher. Especially from that pre-K through 12. Like, I think, I still believe, and I believe it will always be essential. Nothing replaces, and like even for the teenagers, you know what I mean? Like, I had teenagers say like, yeah, like I definitely, not only did I not learn the same, but I miss having my friends and I miss having those adults that care about me around me all day, right? Uh, but there is other ways, like I've heard a lot of schools that, for example, organize teacher schedules. So like each teacher has like one free half a day a week to go about and do other things, right? Especially in our professions, we are usually we get to school very early, before other professionals. Like, we are at school at 7 or something, and we usually leave school late. Uh, and by the time like we leave school, like basically a lot of the basic things in life have begun to shut down, right? Banks or doctors and stuff like that. So even like giving teachers that access, you know what I mean, to be able to say like, okay, I need to get a doctor's appointment, I need to get to the bank, or just I want to do something else, I need to go explore something else. How can we help them and provide like an appropriate schedule that allows them to do that? And it goes again to the fact that in order to recognize somebody as a professional, you need to recognize them as a person first, right? So how can we help the system? Again, it's the system. It's not like an individual school, it's not an individual person or leader, but how can we help the system do that with our teachers?
I love that. I love that. I love that. Let me ask you this, Felipe. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone starting out in your career?
I will say, to especially right now, to be very careful who you surround with, right? Unfortunately, I think that, right, the whole system has led a lot of us as teachers to feel burnout and to feel bitter towards the profession, right? So if you start getting that message from the beginning, forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, if there is one thing that all new teachers have that is beautiful, is they still have that hope, right? They still have like that belief, uh, that what they do matters and that they can change things and change the system. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers for new teachers right now, is that they are, unfortunately, some of them are entering a very toxic environment because the system has made it so, right? So, just be careful with that. Surround yourself with as much positivity. For every toxic leader or toxic teacher that there is around, there is five more that are not, right? So, or 10 more or 20 more. So surround yourself with those, learn from those, and learn to advocate for yourself and for the students.
That's good, man. That's really good. I don't think we've heard that one before as far as advice. So for you first year educators out there, Felipe said, man, surround yourself with positivity and no matter your environment, surround yourself with teachers who are in it for the passion and for the value. I definitely understand as far as getting into a toxic situation or just being a first year teacher at a situation, and all you're hearing is the bitterness, the negativity. So for y'all educators out there, his advice is stay around people who are in it for the passion and in it for changing lives. Logan, we're gonna just take a quick break. Logan, tell them what they need to do and what we're gonna do. Here, just for everybody, all listeners out there, this is the podcast Class in Session. If you guys don't know, we really appreciate everybody who's been supporting us. But we just need y'all to do three things, man: like, share, and comment, man. That's all you gotta do. Like I said, we really appreciate this. If you feel we adding value to everything, like we say, we got somebody our way from Colombia, man. This is a whole international thing now. So if you can just like, share, we really would appreciate that. If you love education, if you're first year in the education, he's dropping gems. He's showing his perspective on things. If you're a principal, admin, we have all kind of people that's coming on this podcast. If you're a parent, this
Your parent. Yep.
this is a whole nother side right here. So if y'all just help us out, once again, like, comment, and share. This is the class in session podcast. So Felipe, we got probably about one or two more questions for you, man, before we get up out of here. So with this question, I'm gonna ask if there's one thing you can change in the education system, just one thing, and we're not talking about on a small scale, we're talking about on a large scale. So for us in the US, we typically say if you can meet with like the US Department of Education, and they say, hey, whatever you say, Felipe, it's gonna change throughout the whole country. So for your country in Colombia, if there's one thing you can change, what would that be?
Whew. Okay, that's a big question because there is so much I want to change.
We just need one. We just need one thing. We don't need
I'm gonna
they
choose.
say Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly. No, but I'm gonna say one that is probably closer to me because of my context and my experience. I come from the private sector. So with kind of like that context in mind, I will say the high stakes standardized BS. Okay, because I've seen how not only schools buy into the whole, like, it has to be the best grades in X exam because that's going to guarantee the best school and the best this and the best that. And I see how schools have bought into this idea and they have sold it to families as a value proposition, and the families have bought into this idea too. And what this had made is that it has created such a pressure in our kids to perform, right? It has made education become all about a grade, all about getting that A, right, or passing that exam. And it's something that for me it's really taking the learning out of education, which is ironic, right? But it's also taking the joy out of learning. So yeah, like if I had that one-to-one face with the Secretary of Education, and he was willing to listen to me, that would be the first thing. Like, let's reduce the pressure of standardized testing and reduce the pressure that creates on students.
Okay, okay. That's a good answer. We have heard some people talk about standardized testing as far as reducing the pressure of it and the amount of weight students feel comes on them literally for something so vital that dictates their whole year. Because with those standardized testing, if you fail, basically they're saying you're not up to par
Right.
for basically the level that's needed to move on to the next grade level. That's very good. Logan, you got something, man? Like I said, we getting close.
No, I don't, man. But what I do want to say, Felipe, is before we do get off here, I want to give you your flowers and I want to say thank you. Thank you for answering the calling to be in education. Thank you for being an educator. Thank you for working with our babies in Colombia, our scholars in Colombia. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And what you do is needed. So, of course, I want to tell you that. I want to say that. And then also, man, I just want to say, man, thank you for coming onto the podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, thank you so much, man, for, dropping these gems and rocking with us and everything. And, I believe in giving people their flowers while they still breathing. So thank you for what you do, man. And what you do matters, and who you are matters. And please do not stop doing what you're doing with being an educator and helping our babies. All right.
Absolutely. Logan and Dontay, thank you so much. And I'm going to basically give you back your flowers saying the same thing. Thank you for the space, right? And we need these spaces, right? We need these spaces, like I said before, for teachers to speak out, as you said, for families to speak out, for students to speak out, and to create a community, to help teachers feel supported, that they are not alone. So thank you again. Thank you for creating that space. And again, I really wish the best for you guys, and to keep going, because we the teachers need this space.
Thank you, man. We really appreciate that. How can, if somebody wanted to just get in touch with you, touch bases on some of the practices, or if they wanted to know more about you guys' school system over there in Colombia, how could they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I have the best way will be my Instagram account. I have
Okay.
an Instagram account in which I talk a little bit about the more of the psychologist aspect of learning, right? And students with learning difficulties, and uh, how to approach learning from like a scientific way. So they can find me at Harmony LC in Instagram. Harmony with no H. Harmony LC.
Can you spell that out for them just so they know? Just spell that out for them.
Absolutely. ARMONYLC.
All right. So for y'all listeners out there, make sure y'all reach out to him on Instagram. Like he said, he talks about a lot of stuff as far as on the psychological side of learning. So for y'all teachers out there, if you want to learn about that, different ways to connect with your students, empower your students, get in touch with Felipe. He has a lot going on as well. And he took the time out of his day to literally talk with us from a whole nother country. Felipe, we truly appreciate this. Like I said, we just made history. You're the first international that we even had on this podcast. So we really do appreciate that. Like I said, this is wonderful. And we love hearing different perspectives, different insights. And it's nothing like comparing and contrast as far as education, because education is worldwide. People learn a million ways, but it's always exceptional for somebody from a different country to tell their point of view, and also when they're in a line and actually have similarities as well.
Right.
Felipe, my man. So one more thing. Can you leave our audience with a piece of motivation, and educators just across the world, and our audience specifically, just leave them with some motivation, man, just to encourage them this school year, and then we'll get up out of here.
Absolutely. I will say this: if there are a lot of uncertain things about our profession and teaching, and we often don't see the end result. But if there is one thing certain, is that for every teacher right now that is maybe driving to work, or is going to bed at night, or is heading to work, there is one student that can't wait to see them. Okay, and you're about to make the whole day of that student just for the fact that you showed up, and there is literally no other profession in which, just by showing up, just by walking into a building, you can change the day of a person. So never forget that there is a student waiting for you, and that's the reason why we do it.
That's good.
I love it, guys. Listen, show up. All right, show up. All right, Felipe. Hey, thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say thank you enough. All right, guys, listen. This is the Class in Session podcast. All right, the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Logan Taylor, with my amazing co-host, my partner in crime, my brother Dontay Hampton, and our special guest, our international teacher, Mr. Felipe Cortes. Cortes, is that correct?
Yep.
Cortes, Mr. Felipe Cortes. Thank you. And listen, guys, show up for these babies because you never know whose life you're going to impact. All right, guys. So listen, this is the Class in Session podcast, and we'll check you all soon. All right. Thanks for listening. Appreciate y'all. Peace. Oh, and before we get out of here, I'm sorry, Dontay. In closing, like we always say, Y.B.Normal.
When you can be extraordinary.
Peace. We'll see y'all soon.